All right, so welcome everybody. If you haven't been on our Whistler Half Marathon seminar series here, Zoom series, my name is Christine Suter and Christine Rosenfeld, actually, changing back. So you'll see two names for me sometimes. I've been helping out Dave since the start of this race with training programs. And we just thought this would be nice to get back to reconnecting for this race coming up. And it is exciting to race again, as I was just sharing. Being part of a race it's just like the community is back. So it's so much fun. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about, tonight we switch over each week from doing some training specific talks. Tonight is a bit more about that mental side of performance and specifically with running. So part of my background is not only as a coach and athlete myself, but went back to my master's of counseling psychology and also did some performance consultant work as an intern. I'm working towards that designation. And so right now I currently have 3 athletes that I work with specifically on the mental side of sport. So it's kind of, it's exciting. I like it. So what I'm going to share with you tonight is a little bit on what we call mindful running. And I think it's kind of fun as I was doing some reading around this and that. I think it's such a neat opportunity that we have to talk about this, especially in a time where we can get inundated with gadgets. Everybody's got their heart rate monitor on, or you're on some kind of link or whatever. We can get really technical and we can actually over focus on some of that stuff instead of starting to get in tune with our bodies and what are they telling us when we're out there running. So the definition of mindful running is just to become mentally connected to your body during your runs and being in the moment. I'm not sure if any of you guys practice this right now. I will share that years ago, I had a yoga instructor that I saw up in Whistler, and she said, have you ever read this book? And it was called Body, Mind, and Sport by John Douillard. John Douillard is a chiropractor that also studied Ayurvedic medicine. And in his book, he did a lot of stuff with only focusing on breath. So all of the athletes that he was working with, he was working with some very high-end athletes at the time, but it was always focused on breath. And when we think about yogic breathing, where we're having that inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, the inhale through the nose, that breath is helping to calm the nervous system. It's also, the studies that they did is that nose breathing can actually bring more air into deeper kind of components of our lungs. And so he was doing some training about almost building a meditative practice into sport during your training, but also as a way to increase lung capacity. So for myself as an athlete that struggled with asthma my whole life, I actually started doing some of his training where I would only go as fast, whether I was on the treadmill, my sport is triathlon. So whether I was on the treadmill or riding my bike, I would only go as fast as I could nose breathe. And the minute that I opened up my mouth, I had to bring down my speed, resistance, whatever. And what I found is that it really increased my capacity, my lung capacity, in order that when I did have to open up my mouth, I had this reservoir that I had created only for doing this nose breathing. What I also found was that while I was so focused on my breath, it took away from a lot of other things that might have been happening. And, we're all dealing with multitude of things that we carry along with us, and we carry that into our training. And sometimes it's nice to disconnect from all of it, from all of the stress, the outdoor kind of things that are happening. So that breath, that breathing just really got me in tune with how I was breathing, what areas of my body were moving when I was taking a deep breath. So for an asthmatic, if any of you are asthmatic or you have friends, asthmatics will do it what they call apical breathing. So they actually use the accessory muscles here in order to lift the rib cage off the lungs in order to get a breath. And so this motion here is a lot of how people will breath. And even when I do muscle retraining or any work in the gym, you know, when I'm working with some athletes, non-athletes, whatever, and I say, take deep breath, right? We're doing this. So it's really becoming in tune with where am I breathing? Our rib cage should ebb and flow. It should expand and it should contract. A lot of times when the muscles are too tight, or we're just not using those muscles, or we're not even using our diaphragm when we breathe, like really kind of using it, it will always be used, but not like consciously with awareness in how we're breathing. We might not have any rib expansion and contraction. So starting to pay attention to that. So tonight it's going to be around thinking about how do we maybe do, and maybe you don't want to do this for your whole run. I kind of have fun experimenting with different things, but you can add this like mindful running into a warm up, a cool down. If you're really focused on everything else, like I think as a warm up, getting in tune with how my body actually feels sometimes is a great way for me to start into my training, or, you know, whatever I'm going to be doing. Because at times I think a lot of us are quite disconnected from how we feel. I'm a person that will push and push and push and push, and my body will break before I will stop. So I'm a poor listener to my body's cues. So somebody like me, if you can relate to that, it's great to just take that time, warm up 10 minutes. What else am I doing? Right? How's my body feeling? How are my shoulders? Am I relaxed? Am I running like I normally do with my shoulders around my ears? How are my legs feeling? Just almost doing, if anybody has practiced any kind of relaxation techniques, like a body scan, it's almost like doing a bit of a body scan before you're getting going. Great thing to do. I know that Headspace, the Headspace app that does guided meditation, they actually have a couple of performance meditation kind of courses that you can do. They're 10 days long, 10 minutes long for each of them. And on their performance one, the guy actually takes you through every session. They're getting you to get in tune with your body, to go from top to bottom and notice what's happening. But when we want to be mindful, we're in a place of not judging it. We're just aware that it's there. Okay. But we don't judge it as good or bad. It just is. So if you're wanting to kind of further develop this type of skill, I highly recommend that. I believe Headspace, if you're not hooked up to it right now, you can do like a 2-week free trial. So something like that, or even Anxiety BC has a great link to a body scan script. And so you could read through that and just kind of like, okay, you know, again, getting in tune with your body, great way to connect. So One thing we talked about very early in our sessions were our process goals. We had our different type of goals, our outcome goal, our performance goals, and our process goals. And what I was saying about those process goals is those process goals help to kind of keep you in the present moment, right? So when we're thinking of being mindful of our running, we can also tie that into maybe, okay, today I'm just going to focus on breath, right? My process goal for the day might be breathing. And so every time I say that cue word, that might bring me back from, instead of thinking about my shopping list, thinking about the discussion I had with a family member, friend, whatever, you can come back. I will write that down. Sorry, somebody's just sent me a little note about the book. I'll write down John's name for that book. But so instead of kind of quieting the chatter in our mind, come back to your process goal. If it is that one word or cue word, get back to it and then come back to that place. Mindful running kind of embraces everything that's going on within the body. We can be mindful about our nutrition, which is something that when I was prepping for this, I had never thought of that. I'm a good Ironman athlete that sucks back those gels, can't stand the taste. And it's like, okay, let's go. But being mindful about almost enjoying what I'm putting into my body because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And that nutrition is enabling me to perform. So bringing that mindful awareness to even things as simple as our nutrition. And we can also have that, like just thinking about, how much sleep you got the night before. And if you hadn't had a good sleep, well, how does my body feel today when I haven't slept well, or I've had a stressful day at work? Do I need to go out and pound out my intervals because that's what it says on my training sheet today? Maybe if I really checked in and said, you know what, I just need to go and enjoy, I need to decompress, and my running is going to help me do that today, I'll get back on track tomorrow, whatever. So thinking about that for yourself, that mindfulness is just going to help you get in tune with your body. And I think we can all have that disconnect where when for a lot of our training, we're mainly focused on the physical. We're focused on running our intervals, doing everything, their strength training, whatever. And we're missing training the mind. So this is your opportunity to put in some of that mental training into your overall training program. I actually just had a session the other day with a girl who was distraught because she couldn't hit her heart rate zones. They were prescribed. She couldn't hit them. The minute we started talking, she was telling me about everything else that was going on, how stressful business was, a business owner during COVID, and all of these things. She had, staff leaving. There were so many other things going on. And I'm like, your body is stressed just from the external things that are going on. Now you want it to perform at a high level and it's not reaching it. Sometimes if we'd stop and we listen to our body, it's like, you know what? I don't need this right now. What I need is X, Y, and Z. So take some time during your runs leading up to the half marathon or your 30K, whatever you're going to be doing there, to start to get in tune with what's happening. Okay. As I say, that body scan is a great thing to do. They did a study, ASICS did a study on mindful running. And I'll have to try and find the link for that. I just kind of read through it. And what they were saying was that when, like, everybody's going to get into a tough point somewhere along your race, your run, we're all going to get there. And you're going to have to ebb and flow and shift from that physical state to the mental state, because there's going to be times during your run that your psychological state is going to, or the psychological battle that you're going to be up against is going to be greater than your physiological one. And so shifting in and out of that, if you've listened to a lot of ultra runners, some like well-accomplished ultra runners, they say that it's a constant shift. They're in and out from one to the other. Times they need that physical strength, they've got it, and then other times there's all of the psychological things that are happening, and they've got to have that mental strength too. So they're shifting back and forth from both of these components. The only way you can shift back and forth is if you start to train that. You start to recognize it, and what skills do I need to get myself through. All right. So looking at that, who is it? Rich Roll podcast. I know I talk about him all the time. I listen to a lot of his podcasts, and he interviewed the top female ultra runner right now. And she talks a lot about where she needs to go mentally during her runs. Great podcast. And again, I'm flubbing on the names tonight, but yeah, if anybody knows, write it in the chat. Yeah, so that's another thing, just to kind of explore. Maybe if you have a runner or an athlete that you follow, I'm sure they're going to have something about how they're doing their mental training, and that, and tapping into that is sometimes a huge resource. They might be saying things that relate to you, resonate with you, might list some tips or skills. So I highly recommend that. Yeah, where is it going to go here? Yeah, so one way you can do your mindful running, to practice your mindful running, is to either start focusing just on breath, how you're breathing. I don't know if you've been in races where you're running by a person that has earbuds in, they're like, they're absolutely dying. I don't think they have any cue. Like, I don't think they have any clue that they are breathing that hard. And as I run by them in the start of a marathon, I'm like, you're not going to make it. That's my thought. I hope I'm not being too negative when I say that, but I think of that all the time. I'm like, you have no idea how hard you are breathing, and you're not even a kilometer into a marathon, buddy. It's not good. You're not going to make it, right? So being aware of how our breath is, how heavy we are breathing, even listening to your footsteps, listening to, just taking time to not have anything, totally disconnecting, but reconnecting to your body and listening to, how are my feet hitting the pavement? Can I run and not make any sound? Can I do that on a treadmill? Kind of tapping into any of that. Tap into, how do your arms feel? How do your legs feel? Again, when we talk about this mindfulness, it's being aware in the present moment without judgment or criticism. That's it. So you're just going to be aware of whatever might be happening. Yeah, breathing is a big one. Definitely noticing the change. Can you change your breath? Can you breathe in different patterns? Can you run and only do that nose breathing? That John Douillard is the name of the guy that wrote the book. And again, I'll write it down. He had a thing to try with walking. So it was kind of a mindfulness walking. And it was to take up to 9 steps for an inhale, 9 steps for an exhale. And you can start at any interval you want. I actually started using that technique when I was working with people post-concussion, so concussion recovery. and trying to get them to help calm themselves, but we were also adding in some movement, and we tapped into breath. It was amazing. It was amazing for them to see that calm, but it was also just a way to get into that meditative state. So if you're doing a recovery walk, if you're just even going for a walk, I would do this with my dog all the time. And 9 steps for my inhale, 9 steps for my exhale. And yeah, and you don't have to start there. As I say, you're starting with whatever you can do for your inhale and your exhale, and then you can just progress up. But a wonderful way to combine both that meditative state and that just being present with your body in that moment. Yeah. The other thing is when we can be in that mindful state, we don't have to always worry about the watch, the time, the whatever. You know, how far am I? I don't know. Sometimes what I think they call it bear running now, where it's like, leave the watch at home, leave the phone at home, just go out and be. There's something to be said with that. When we also think about mindfulness, there can be that connection to all of our other senses. So when you are out running in the forest, what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see? Tapping into all of those things, that does take us a little bit out of our body in the sense when we're looking at what we're seeing, but it's also a way for us to calm and connect. So there's that kind of disconnecting from all of the technology, but reconnecting to nature, reconnecting to ourselves. So that's another kind of tool that you can think of to do that. Yeah, I'm just going to write down in the chat the name of that guy, Body, Mind, and Sport. I think his book is from way back when, but it is a good read, very interesting. When talking about being present focused, I told you about the Headspace app. I had listened to that Headspace on performance before I did Ultraman back in 2019. And I went into Ultraman with issues, with some injuries. Well, with issues. I went in with some injuries, and let's just say I tapped into that mindfulness, the body scan, of being able to notice what was happening with my body and just kind of going, all right, knowing that at any moment it could change, and it usually does. If you've done endurance sports previously, you've probably noticed a shift where at one moment something is so painful and the next moment you're running and you totally forgot about it. So when we spend too much time on whether it is the pain, whether it's discomfort, whatever it might be, sometimes having that shift out of there is, it can be helpful, and just kind of being in the mindset of, you know, it might change. If it doesn't, maybe we do have to stop. But if it does change, it's like, all right, we're noticing that. So being able to do that is a very powerful tool. I had a mantra that I would say to myself when I was out on my bike, and it was, what time is it now? Where are you here? And it would always bring me back to, okay, what's happening right now for me? Do I need to focus on my nutrition? Do I need to relax my body? You know, all of these things that at times we can get so wrapped up in other stuff. So mindful running. I'm going to open it up to you guys right now. Does anybody practice any form of mindful running right now? And you can either write it in or unmute yourself and share. No?
I actually just was listening. Sorry, it's Amanda.
Yeah.
I've actually just was listening to a podcast the other day, and they have these. I can find the name of the podcast, but also can't remember off the top of my head. But they have these like together runs. So they're doing a run, and you can be listening as you're doing a run, and they actually go through a full body scan. And it's just like, how is your head, your neck, your shoulders, like through the whole your body. And then also it's like, okay, now if you have headphones in, take them out, but to going and then doing a senses scan. So now I have actually started doing that while I'm, even if I'm not listening to it, and it is helpful. It just really, yeah, it does. It grounds you, and yeah, so it's
Excellent.
been a useful tool for sure.
Right on. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Yeah. I recommend for a lot of my athletes, if they're doing a half marathon, a marathon, even 10K, that at that 5K mark, they always do a body check in with your body. How is it? And so that as you're going through, you just have little checkpoints along the way. And that can be really helpful if you're a person that is not in tune with taking your nutrition all the time, or, when we do that check, what does my body need right now? How is my breathing? Do I need to slow down? Maybe do I want to try speeding it up? So we can have those little moments along the way in some of our races, just to check in, and still have amazing performances. So having a check-in doesn't mean that you're taking away from performance. It can actually enhance your performance. And what they found with some of the studies they did on the mindful running is that when athletes got in tune with their body, that actually helped their performance. So, and now I'm going to say help their performance. That's what they said. They didn't get into specifics, whether it was time or whatever, that they were getting faster. Yeah, okay. So someone's saying here, they sort of break up into chunks, spend time focusing on breathing, footwork, shoulders relaxed. Fantastic. Yes. So just coming into having that small amount of time where we're checking in with the body. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's I think it is worthwhile to practice disconnecting, especially if you're a person that is really, I'm gonna say, almost obsessed with what's happening here. Because if you get into a place where either your battery dies, there is no signal, you've lost this, I did have an athlete that happened to in Ironman, and he was like, well, I couldn't get my thing. I'm like, just keep on going. Like, what are you doing? But he was so overly connected on this. And that was part of my training as a coach, noticing that I didn't implement with him enough time away from devices. I was prescribing stuff where, yeah, he was having to check and keep note and everything else. And I didn't realize that he actually needed to prepare in case all of those tools weren't going to work. I kind of assumed, well, if it's not working, you just keep going, right? Just keep going as hard as you can. It's not going to be for everybody. So if we're not training those aspects that might be our hiccups, our speed bumps along the way, we want to get into that. Yeah. One thing I've been trying, I mentioned this a couple of sessions ago. I've been playing around with breath when I'm doing my runs. So I've done 2 trail run races recently, and they have something that they just discovered. Neuroscientists and breathing have discovered this thing called this physiological sigh to help actually reset the nervous system when somebody is overly stimulated. So if you have somebody that's very high anxiety or whatever, they have this thing called the physiological sigh. And the physiological sigh is 2 inhales to 1 slow exhale. And so when I notice that my breathing is getting up and doing a lot of steep hill climbs, and I'm quickly out of breath and I've got to get myself back, I tried doing this, and I actually had found that it helped. So this is an asthmatic saying that this type of breathing, I could get enough breath in that I could do my and a bit of a forced exhale as I was doing my run, and found that it really helped me to reset. I also did it at the beginning of a swim race that I was silly enough to think that Sasamat Lake would actually be warm this time of year. It's not. Okay, so if you're going out there, bring all your goodies, bring a hat, toque, whatever you got, gloves, mitts, booties. But yeah, it was so cold that I did the breath at the beginning, because I honestly walked into the water and thought, I cannot do this. The other thing that was really helpful for me, this was only a swim race, is that I ended up doing the race, and the whole time I had to focus so much on my breathing because it was so cold, and the closeness I was to having an anxiety or a panic attack out there was, it was just, I had to focus on breathing regularly in order to keep myself in the game and not having a panic attack. So any of these tools that you're practicing, as I say, you never know when you're going to have to use something, when you're going to have to find a strategy for something that you didn't think that you were going to have to manage or deal with. I'm tooting my own horn here. I'm a great swimmer, but that to me was just so cold. And yeah, so I love that Amanda brought up that thing about, doing the body scan. Stephen's also doing a body scan. These are great techniques. So I highly recommend that everybody thinks about during their warm up, their cool down, or when you're actually doing your run, is get to that place where you can just focus in on your body. Add that in. Also take time to try some of the breath work and pay attention to how am I breathing. We know that when we start doing something that's a little bit more aggressive, whether it's our intervals, we're going to be breathing through our mouth. Can we actually do the interval and then focus on breathing and recovery and get back into our body during that recovery time before we start that next interval? Try to find different ways to incorporate this. I'm just going to go into the chat here, and just because I saw a couple things that people wrote up. Yeah, there you go. Fantastic, great analogy. So Stephen wrote in the chat, I enjoy the tech apps, etc. But I use it like my hammer when building homes, as a tool available to me when I want to use it, but careful not to become a slave to it. Fantastic. That's just love that analogy. I might have to remember your name and credit you the next time I use that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Great. Okay. Nice. Okay. So Shannon here, she's been incorporating some of the stuff we talked about 2 weeks ago about having a kind of like a phrase or that process goal, something that she's telling herself instead of always being critical. So stopping the critical mind. She's been using that. My feet are light feet. Absolutely. So just some cue words to keep you going. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can all get a little hard on ourselves when it comes to our training and not meeting some goals, but coming back down to where you can just be within your body. There is that thing of acceptance. Oh God. Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Today, this is where I am today. Accept that, right? Might not be hitting my zone 4 on my hill repeats. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get there, but it might mean today that with everything that's happened, that might not be it. So we're really putting in a lot of different strategies into helping ourselves be more mindful. Yeah, let's see. I'm just going to check and make sure I'm got all my my key points. Yeah, I think the big takeaway from this tonight is, or what I really want to get across, my purpose of doing this is that there are going to be times when with either in your training or in your racing that things are going to get tough, and you're going to have a strategy to help you get through. You're not going to have to. You might want to. I'll be a little bit more kind. You know, we want to have some of those strategies where we can go, okay, knowing that it's going to get tough. How do I do when it gets tough? Where do I go? Right? All of that again is bringing that awareness into not only connecting to my body, but also connecting to the dialogue that I might have going on in my own head, where I like it when I meet the toughness, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to have this somewhere out on one of my races during my training. It's going to feel uncomfortable. I'm going to hit tough places. And what am I going to do when I get there? How do I work through that? Do I give up? No. Okay. Where do I go? What are my tools? What are my strategies? So breathing, focus on breathing. If you haven't done any breath work before, as I say, following John Douliard's, just doing, okay, if you really like movement, I as a therapist and counselor, I actually do walking counseling. Movement is very therapeutic for the body. People can heal through movement. So moving the body and incorporating that breath, I think, is an absolutely wonderful thing to do. So trying to do those 4 inhales, 4 steps for an inhale, 4 steps for an exhale, whatever it might be for you. Another thing is box breathing. So that's where you're kind of following in that shape of the box to do your breath work. And it's kind of 4, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. You can also do it for 2 if you don't do a lot of big breath work, and that maybe holding your breath brings on a little bit of anxiety for you. Take it down, do the 2, 2, and 2. There's also just focusing on breath, just to sit there and inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. If you guys are up for the challenge, I would say get on a trainer, get on your treadmill, try your next run, only nose breathing, and see how it goes. It'll definitely, it's hard. You'll probably be a little bit slower, but you can definitely increase lung capacity doing that. The last thing is the body scan. Finding either, Amanda shared that there was an app that does a bit of a body scan, checking out Headspace and their performance series has the body scan. And then there's also Anxiety BC that you can, if you go Anxiety BC body scan script, it'll pop right up. It says it's youth and child. I use it for adults. I use it for youth, everybody. So tapping into any of those. Any questions about any of this? Anybody have? No. Okay. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, I'm happy to stay around for a few minutes if anybody wants to chat. Again, I always say this, you always have me as a resource. You can either email Dave and he can forward it to me. I'm happy to help you out any way I can to make your Whistler Half Marathon experience the best it can be. And I love doing this. I love sharing what I've learned, what I test. I take myself as a little experiment each time. So this is lots of fun. Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So yeah, somebody's just, saying about starting nice and slow, working breath work into, so let's say you're just coming back into running. And yeah, we don't want to start too quickly or move too quickly into our training because that just increases the risk of injury. So adding some of this breath work in would be an amazing complement. So if I'm doing a walk run, when I'm walking with purpose, and I'm maybe practicing that breath work that we were talking about, and then going into my running. It doesn't matter what the time, pace, speed is. Again, get in tune with your body. Even if it's a walk run. I walk run all my marathons in Ironman. So it's just get in tune with your body. Again, listening to your feet. What do your feet sound like when they hit the pavement? Where are you breathing? What are your hands doing? Are you clenched? Are they relaxed? What about your face? A lot of times we don't realize how much energy it takes to either clench, scrunch up our face. These are muscles. We're taking away energy from other areas of our body just to do everything with our face, right? My dentist used to always say, what are you doing with your teeth? And what I was doing was when I was riding my bike, I was clenching so much. And so I learned how to relax my jaw, tongue on the roof of my mouth as I was riding bikes, not into a swarm of flies though. Just let me tell you, no, just thought I'd add that in there. Yeah. Really, I think the most wonderful thing about sport is that we all start somewhere, and it doesn't matter where that somewhere is. When we're out there, we're all one. We're all running the same distance. We start at the same time and off we go, or sometimes, we're all in there together and we're all encouraging each other. So, I'm just seeing some comments about I'm plodding, I'm slow, and this is something I think I talked about last time. Start to become aware about how you are talking about yourself as an athlete, as a beginner, and how are you talking to yourself and how you're talking to others, because it matters and it will play back in to what you're feeling and what you're moving forward with your training. So, I plod too. All the time. Well, I had a very slow run the other weekend. But you know what? I was so happy. People were still cheering. I was still cheering for people. And it is such a community. It's such a beautiful thing. And we can tap into different areas of all of that. So whether you're walking, running, you're a beginner, you're an experienced athlete, we can all benefit by trying any of these techniques. And it's our race, it's our journey. So enjoy it. That would be my big thing I'd share. Yeah. Okay, so somebody just shared my favorite part of last year's Whistler was being lapped 3 times by the advanced runners. Yes. Oh, I relate to that. And a handful of them spoke encouragingly. Yes, that's wonderful. Yeah. Okay, yes, walk. So we've got somebody here walking the half marathon. Awesome. Yes. Okay. Excellent. Good work here. If this person who is doing their walking, we do have, I just want to share, we have Wendy with us tonight, and Wendy was always doing the walk training. Wendy Ramsey, she does the walk training for the Whistler Half Marathon, and I would be doing some of the run training. So she is a great resource for anybody who has any questions about walking the half marathon, what that might be like. So that's great. And I'm happy to connect you if you'd like, and if Wendy's open to that. I would get you're okay first, Wendy, but yeah, it's a wonderful thing that we can all share. So focus on the breath. Okay, just checking in. Yeah, excellent. Okay, yeah, everybody, I'm gonna shut it down here. Again, if you have other questions, anything you want to add, anything you want to share, reach out to me, reach out to Dave. He can forward stuff to me, and have fun with your training. Experiment a little bit with what you're doing, and definitely working on that mental side of performance is going to benefit you in many different ways. So I wish you all happy training. Next week, we are going to be doing a little bit of some exercise stuff. So come in your workout gear. We're going to go over some different strength training exercise that can complement your training. They are doable for anybody at any level. So if you'd like to join me for that, that'll be next Wednesday at 7 p.m. and we'll go through that. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night and happy training.
Thanks, Christine.
Very welcome.